How I Tamed and Outsmarted the Monster and Let You Destroy Yourself. Kaiser Soze Edition. Chapter 1. I didn't become the monster. I always was. Let's get one thing straight from the beginning. I didn't turn into the monster. I didn't snap. I didn't lose control. I stopped pretending I wasn't one. Because the truth is, the monster doesn't show up one day out of nowhere. It's built slowly, quietly, piece by piece. Every time you swallow something you should have said. Every time you let disrespect slide because it's not worth it. Every time you explain yourself to someone who already decided they don't care. That energy doesn't disappear. It stores. It hardens. It waits. Most people are taught to fear that part of themselves. They're told it's dangerous, uncivilized, wrong. So they bury it. They suppress it. They pretend it's not there. And that's why they get eaten alive by people who never buried theirs. I didn't become the monster. I stopped lying to myself about needing it. Chapter 2. Monsters aren't violent. They're efficient. Movies lie to you about monsters. They make you think monsters are loud, explosive, uncontrolled. That's not a monster. That's a child throwing a tantrum. Real monsters are quiet, observant, patient. They don't waste energy. They don't explain themselves. They don't fight battles that don't serve them. They understand something most people never do. Power is not force. Power is leverage. Leverage over time. Leverage over access. Leverage over reaction. Monsters don't dominate by screaming. They dominate by deciding what matters and what doesn't. That's why they win early. Because while everyone else is emotional, reactive, trying to be fair, the monster is already positioning, already watching, already learning who folds under pressure and who doesn't. I didn't realize this at first. I still thought morality protected me. It doesn't. Only strategy does. Wait, stop listening. Only continue if you proved your worth and readiness. If you haven't subscribed and hit like button as proof of your commitment to yourself and me, then stop now and hit subscribe and like and lock in. If not, stop and leave. This isn't made for the half-assers. If you don't show a commitment to yourself now by following a simple yet powerful symbolic metaphor, then you're not ready to rebuild yourself and transform, and you're not ready for this, and this wasn't made for you. If you already subscribed and liked the video, you're in the right place at the right time, and this is meant for you, and you will get what you're looking for. I did the same thing and went through the same challenges and damage. We're doing this together. Let's fucking go. Chapter 3. The Day I Stopped Feeding Everyone. Here's the part most people won't admit. They feed the monster, even when they hate it. They feed it with arguments, with reactions, with outrage, with explanations. They feed it by caring. I used to do the same thing. I explained myself. I defended my intentions. I tried to be understood. And every time I did, the monster got stronger. Because monsters don't want clarity. They want movement. Movement means mistakes. Mistakes mean control. The day everything changed wasn't dramatic. There was no explosion. I just stopped feeding everyone. I stopped responding immediately, stopped clarifying, stopped correcting lies that didn't need correcting. Not because I was scared, because I finally understood the game. If you don't react, you don't bleed. If you don't bleed, predators lose interest. That's when I started to starve them. Chapter 4. Silence is a threat. People think silence is weakness. That's because they don't know how to use it. Silence is an absence. Silence is refusal. Refusal to engage emotionally. Refusal to explain. Refusal to justify your existence. When you go silent with intention, it creates pressure. Pressure makes weak people loud. Pressure makes manipulators sloppy. Pressure makes monsters overplay. I didn't disappear. I stayed present, but unavailable. I answered when it didn't matter. I withheld when it did. That confused people, and confusion is dangerous, not for me, but for them. Because when people don't know where they stand with you, they reveal who they really are. and monsters always reveal themselves when they feel control slipping. Chapter 5. Starving the monster. Without triggering it. You don't kill a monster by cutting its head off. You kill it by removing its food, but you can't do it suddenly. Sudden starvation causes panic. Panic causes escalation. So, you starve it slowly. You stay calm, predictable, neutral, but you remove the urgency, the emotional charge, the validation. The monster can't tell what changed, only that something has. That uncertainty eats at it. It tests boundaries, pushes harder, creates drama. I didn't react. Consistency is poison to manipulation. The more stable I became, the more unstable it got. That's not coincidence. That's mechanics. Chapter 6. Ego always overplays. Here's something you can count on. Ego will always betray the monster. When feedback disappears, ego fills the gaps. It assumes, projects, invents intent. The monster mistook my calm for fear, my distance for defeat. That's when it got arrogant. And arrogance makes people sloppy. Stories changed, contradictions stacked, positions hardened without evidence. I said nothing, because interruption gives relief. Silence lets ego hang itself. Chapter 7. When the monster turns inward, every monster eventually turns on itself. Without an external enemy to fight, it starts inventing one. Allies become threats. Supporters become liabilities. Neutral people become enemies. Paranoia replaces strategy. This is decay. I didn't accelerate it. I didn't intervene. I stayed disciplined while it unraveled. That's the hardest part. Doing nothing correctly. Chapter 8. Control slips. Quietly. Control never collapses with noise. It collapses with silence. Messages stop coming back. Doors close. Influence fades. The monster doesn't understand why. It thinks it was betrayed. It never realizes the truth. It exhausted its supply. Monsters don't get defeated. They run out of people willing to hold them together. And once that happens, they destroy themselves. Chapter 13. The quiet after the collapse. The end didn't arrive with noise. It arrived with quiet. That's what surprised me the most. No victory speech, no final confrontation, no moment where anyone said, "You were right." Just space. Space in my head, space in my calendar, space in my chest where tension used to live. One day I realized I hadn't checked my phone in hours. Another day I noticed decisions were easier, cleaner, less emotional. I slept better. I worked deeper. I moved through conversations without bracing for impact. That's how you know it's over. Not because the monster admits defeat. Monsters never do. But because it no longer occupies mental territory. It no longer bends your schedule, your reactions, your attention. Most people chase closure like it's a finish line. It isn't. Closure is the absence of compulsion. When you no longer need the other side to understand you, explain itself, or acknowledge anything at all, that's closure. And it arrives quietly if you let it. Chapter 14. What this kind of winning changes. Winning this way doesn't make you louder. It doesn't make you cruel. It doesn't turn you into something unstable or reckless. It makes you precise. You stop over-explaining. You stop negotiating with dysfunction. You stop giving unlimited access to people who haven't earned it. Your patience becomes selective. Your attention becomes intentional. Your tolerance for nonsense drops sharply. People misinterpret this. They call it cold. They call it arrogant. They call it detached. That's projection. What they're reacting to is efficiency. Efficiency feels threatening to people who rely on chaos. Boundaries feel aggressive to people who live by manipulation. Calm feels intimidating to people addicted to drama. You don't correct those perceptions, you let them exist. Because once you've won this way, you don't manage optics, you manage reality. And reality rewards clarity. Chapter 15. You don't become the monster. This is where most people misunderstand the transformation. They think outsmarting a monster means becoming one. It doesn't. Monsters are reactive. They chase control. They need validation. You don't. You don't escalate to feel powerful. You don't manipulate to feel secure. You don't dominate to feel significant. You act when action serves you. You disengage when it doesn't. That difference matters. Intent matters. Monsters extract. You protect. Monsters need chaos to survive. You thrive on structure. That's why this strategy doesn't corrupt you. It disciplines you. It teaches you restraint. It teaches you timing. It teaches you the difference between movement and progress. And once you internalize that, you stop confusing noise for momentum. You stop confusing urgency for importance. You become very hard to provoke. Chapter 16. Living Untouchable. After the collapse, there's a temptation to relax, to believe the threat is gone forever. That's how people lose ground. You don't live paranoid, but you live aware. You recognize patterns earlier. You disengage faster. You don't wait for proof when behavior already told you everything. This isn't bitterness. It's refinement. You stop giving explanations where boundaries are sufficient. You stop arguing with people who benefit from misunderstanding you. You stop negotiating with emotional blackmail. You don't announce these changes. You embody them, and people adjust. Those who respect boundaries stay. Those who relied on access drift away. Both outcomes are correct. Chapter 17. The rule that applies everywhere. This wasn't a one-time tactic. It's a rule of engagement. Never wrestle for control inside an environment you can redesign. Most people fight inside bad systems, toxic relationships, dysfunctional workplaces, ego-driven power structures. They think the only options are fight harder or give up. There's a third option. You change what gets rewarded. You change what gets access. You change what gets response. You don't oppose, you reroute. That's architectural dominance. And monsters can't survive in terrain they don't control. Chapter 18. Why doing nothing is sometimes the move. Action is overrated. Action feels powerful. Action feels decisive. But action taken at the wrong time feeds the wrong system. Sometimes the most dominant move is restraint. Not passive restraint, disciplined restraint. Doing nothing when others expect reaction creates pressure. Pressure reveals motive. Motive exposes weakness. This is where patience becomes power. You don't need to respond to every provocation. You don't need to correct every lie. You don't need to win every exchange. You only need to win the war for access. Once access is gone, the rest handles itself. Chapter 19. The Kaiser Soze Principle. The greatest trick wasn't defeating the monster. It was making it irrelevant. By the time it realized what happened, the game was already over. No rematch, no appeal, no way back in. That's the Kaiser Soze move. You don't expose the monster publicly. You don't announce the strategy. You don't take a victory lap. You let it believe it's winning right up until there's nothing left to win. And then you're gone. No fingerprints, no scars you carry forward, no need to revisit the story. Chapter 20. What remains? What remains isn't rage. It isn't revenge. It's discipline. Discipline to protect your time. Discipline to guard your attention. Discipline to choose your battles. You don't walk away angry. You don't walk away broken. You walk away untouchable. Not because you're feared, but because you're no longer available for nonsense. That's the real ending.